You're watching Money Talks with me, Oscar Subakti. Coming up on the program, Donald Trump delays tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods. China looks to boost demand and growth in the world's second largest economy. And Toyota looks further into the future. Investors have breathed a sigh of relief after the US President Donald Trump significantly expanded the goods exempted from his new tariffs on Canada and Mexico, America's two largest trading partners. Trump had imposed 25% tariffs on most goods from the neighbouring countries on Tuesday, but said he would temporarily spare carmakers on Wednesday. Now, the latest reprieve would apply to all goods that fall under the USMCA, the trade agreement Trump negotiated with Canada and Mexico in his first term. But according to a White House official, just over 60% of Canadian imports could still face the new tariffs because they're not USMCA-compliant, while around half of Mexican goods could be penalised. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum has welcomed the latest decision, while Canada's finance minister has confirmed the country would delay a second wave of retaliatory tariffs on US products. Despite this latest reprieve, Trump still plans to introduce reciprocal tariffs on April 2nd, targeting what he says are unfair trade practices. The trade war tensions have rattled markets and raised fears of economic turbulence. Our North America correspondent John Brain has more from Washington.
I think there was one overriding theme, and that was the theme that America is being ripped off. This is something that he's hammered away at both before becoming president, after his first presidency, and now again in his second term. And he refers to it being ripped off in terms of trade. He believes that any country the US has a trade deficit with is ripping America off. And later on in that long news conference, he talked about NATO again. And you remember there were discussions, threats even in his first term that he would withdraw from NATO. And in his campaign, election campaign, he was asked about what he would do if a country wasn't paying enough towards NATO. He said, well, he wouldn't defend them. In fact, he would encourage Russia to attack. He didn't go that far this time, but he again said that there was no reason that the US would come to the defense of a country that wasn't paying its way. Clearly still not a fan of NATO. He didn't talk about pulling out at all, but he's certainly saying that the other nations need to step up. He says that because of his influence, they have increased their defense expenditure. Billions of dollars, he said, hundreds of billions of dollars extra in defense. He said before that the Americans were paying nearly 100% of NATO's bill. So that's really, in a nutshell, Donald Trump's philosophy, or one of his major philosophies through his presidency, this idea that America is not getting a fair deal. So we're seeing that in with the NATO discussions, and more topically, of course, with tariffs, because he's just announced that he's suspending the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, but only for a month. And he made it clear there that it is only for a month. And on April the 2nd, those tariffs will go back into place, and also reciprocal tariffs and globally. So any country that imposes a tariff or a tax on American goods will have a similar tax applied to their goods. So in Donald Trump's vision, this will make everything equal. It'll mean that America is not getting ripped off anymore. Though, of course, it's causing great instability in the markets here, all the confusion, all the to and fro, here's a tariff, now I'm going to take it off or suspend it. And there is this sort of fear that a full-on global trade war is imminent.
Well, let's get more on this now with Chris Doyle from the Council of Arab-British Understanding. Really good to have you back with us, Chris. It's been a bit of an emotional rollercoaster for investors worldwide as Donald Trump essentially chopped and changed his trade policies when it comes to tariffs on Canada and Mexico. It looks like we now have a reprieve of about a month. What do you think is Trump's rationale here?
That's such an impossible question to answer, to be honest, because it's just all over the place, isn't it? At one moment he threatens this, then he swaps, changes his mind. And, what businesses need all over the world and always have done is certainty. They want to know what's going to happen next. But when you have a US administration that threatens this and then changes it the day after to impose tariffs, and then the very following day issue a partial reprieve, shows really that there isn't a proper grip here, that there isn't somebody really managing things. And I think there is an absence of somebody working for Trump in charge of trade policy, able to actually lay down the terms to the president. We're in a structured, systematic fashion in terms of what he wants to do. We know that he wants to address that $131 billion trade deficit that US has with the rest of the world. But, you've got to do it in a way that is not going to damage not only the American economy, but also those of its leading trading partners. And at the moment, it's really hard to see who comes out of this as a beneficiary. And I think that it may well be that this will backfire on the US economy, that we will see, as many economists are arguing, rising inflation and nervousness generally in the business sector.
Yes, and what we do know for sure is that when these tariffs were supposed to have taken effect earlier this week, stock markets fell, particularly on Wall Street. And we know that Donald Trump, in his first administration, took great pride in the fact that Wall Street had reached record highs the first time around. Do you think Trump might be guided or even spooked by movements on Wall Street in response to his moves on tariffs?
I think he does look at those numbers, even though he was at pains to deny it. And he has said, there may be some short-term pain for the American economy, but in the long term, it's very strong. But he's got to get the politics of all of this right as well, because he is alienating favored markets for the United States. We're seeing a lot of, for example, Canadian patriotic sentiment, where they won't buy any American goods anymore, that they're going to try to reduce their dependency on the United States. And it may not be the last country where a lot of people adopt that sort of view. Now, that's not going to be helpful to exporting American goods and improving that, balance of trade deficit.
And let's not forget that while Canada and Mexico have this temporary reprieve, Donald Trump is going full steam ahead with tariffs on Chinese goods. And we know that a lot of Chinese imports enter the US market. That could have a real impact on consumers, couldn't it? Are you expecting prices to rise across the board when it comes to goods from China?
I think that's inevitable, but we may well also see that Trump and the Chinese authorities, engage in verbal tit for tat. There could be some sort of an agreement, an arrangement to make one step forward, two steps back. We've seen this so often with Donald Trump. And of course, further down the line, 2nd of April, we are looking at this, these policies where they're going to try to flatten out the tariffs and essentially impose equal tariffs on other countries. Quite how that works out, I'm not sure, because, of course, the trading system isn't quite so simplistic as to be able to do that. So it just injects, and I repeat, this tremendous uncertainty into global markets, because the world's largest economy is now under the control of a leadership that doesn't seem to have settled on a consistent approach that is fair and that people can bank on, literally, in terms of where it's going.
Okay, Chris Doyle, we'll have to leave it there. Great to get your thoughts as always. Thank you. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has also announced that Taiwan's chip-making giant TSMC will make an additional investment of $100 billion in the US. It's a move that would strongly back the Trump administration's policy of securing the supply chain for key industries, including rare earth elements and high-tech chips. Kubra Akoch has the story.
During his campaign trail, President Trump said Taiwan should pay more to be defended by the US. And now he dodges the questions when asked if his administration would allow China to take Taiwan by force.
I never comment on that. I don't comment on anything because I don't want to ever put myself in that position.
China has increased its military presence around Taiwan, a self-governing territory Beijing sees as a breakaway province. Despite there being no official diplomatic ties between Washington and Taipei, the US has been Taiwan's staunchest ally and arms supplier. Former President Biden once said he would send troops to defend Taiwan. Analysts argue Trump's America First policy and his recent Oval Office blow-up with Ukrainian President Zelensky unnerved Taiwanese officials to rethink their security pact with the US.
Maintaining the status quo and peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait is a consensus we have with the United States. We are using deterrence and strength to achieve peace. I believe the US will not give up the Indo-Pacific region.
Then comes Taiwan's TSMC, the world's largest contract chip maker's announcement of an additional $100 billion worth investment in the US.
This $100 billion in new investment will go into building 5 cutting-edge fabrication facilities in the great state that we just discussed, Arizona, and will create thousands of jobs, many thousands of jobs.
Many say it's Taiwan's payback for the certain security guarantees it receives from the US against China's aggression. Also, President Trump wants to ensure the US's dominance in the AI race for the next generation chip, securing better chips for American companies and curb the supply of new and more advanced chips to China.
Having these semiconductor chips made on US soil is really, really important because the chips we get from Taiwan, they're always at risk. The Chinese decided that they were going to invade Taiwan. If we don't have access to those chips, we could lose a lot of our economy in a year.
Surely Trump's MAGA spirit in action. For now, this looks like a win-win for both sides. Kubra Akoch, TRT World.
China's parliament plans on vigorously boosting consumption and stimulating domestic demand as the country sets a roughly 5% growth target for 2025. It's a bid to rectify imbalances in the world's second largest economy. But as Rahul Radhakrishnan reports, not everything is going to plan.
A looming economic crisis is worrying Beijing. The powerhouse nation is in the midst of an escalating trade war with the US. But promises to grow the economy and a drive to support consumption remains, with the help of consumer-focused fiscal incentives.
Through comprehensive analysis, we can see that our system has advantages, our market holds great potential, and our enterprises are full of vitality. More importantly, we have the courage to face these risks and challenges head-on, as well as the confidence and capability to solve problems. Therefore, achieving the target of around 5% growth this year is well-founded, well-supported, and well-guaranteed.
Normally, China's main fiscal task focuses on technology. Not this year. The focus for 2025 is on boosting consumption.
To cope with possible external and domestic uncertainties, the central government has also set aside ample reserve tools and policy space.
But despite falling prices, there's a problem. More and more Chinese are becoming conservative in their spending.
Whether it's food, clothing, accommodation, or transportation, everything has been downgraded. For example, when I used to go to work or to go out, I would drive wherever I went. But now I think it's quite convenient to just ride a scooter, especially for trips within 5 kilometers. It feels like I'm spending less money in every respect.
Frugality has become the trend in this country. Consumers are unlikely to let go of that without faith in their economic futures. China's formerly thriving property sector is now debt-laden, making citizens feel increasingly vulnerable.
When the real estate market is booming, people believe that they are very rich. If you own a house in Beijing, own a house in Shanghai, we're talking about more than, say, million yuan or over 2 million yuan or even more than that. So if people believe that they're rich, they tend to spend the current incomes on consumption. But with the decrease in the price of housing in most part of China, people believe that they're no longer as rich as before.
The government says the latest moves will guard the economy from volatility and boost spending. But so far, it seems not everyone is buying into it. Rahul Radhakrishnan, TRT World.
Now, for millions of Japanese, rice is more than just food. It's a daily ritual. But this staple is now under threat. With prices skyrocketing, families are being forced to rethink their meals, and the government is taking drastic measures to keep market shelves stocked. Ömer Bakalolu reports.
From simple home-cooked meals to world-famous sushi, for centuries, rice has been the foundation of Japanese cuisine. It represents tradition, the hard work of farmers, and a deep-rooted sense of national identity. Yet, ensuring a steady supply of this vital grain has been a challenge. During World War II, the government introduced the Staple Food Control Act of 1942 to prevent food shortages. Then, in 1995, a new law created an emergency rice stockpile designed to be only used in times of disaster. Now, for the first time since that law was passed, that strategic reserve is being tapped. Hot weather, poor harvests, and even panic buying have nearly doubled the price of rice over the past year. The Japanese government says it's releasing 210,000 tons of rice, 1/5 of its emergency reserves, in an effort to stabilize the market.
I still do buy rice occasionally, but since it's so expensive, I sometimes give up on buying it once I see the price.
I'm buying rice less and less frequently, and sometimes replacing it with packaged noodles like udon or yakisoba because they're cheaper.
Following typhoons and rumors of earthquakes, last August, some supermarket shelves were emptied. While the government had hoped new harvests would ease the pressure, inflation has continued, exacerbated by distributors suspected of hoarding supplies and holding out for even higher prices.
This country has experienced a shortage of rice over and over again, like the year 1993 when the cold weather damaged the rice production, but people easily forget how bad it was. And people blindly go for some low-price rice at supermarket without thinking if farmers can really operate sustainably for such prices. If I put in a harsh way, I have to say that people are experiencing a really severe tit for tat.
Tourist consumption also more than doubled over the past year, as the country received a record 37 million sushi-hungry international visitors in 2024. So, whether it's climate change, hoarding, a surging tourist economy, or a combination of all three, Japan's rice crisis shows that even the most fundamental staples are no longer guaranteed. Ömer Bakalolu, TRT World.
Turkish Airlines has become the world's third largest airline in international passenger capacity and cargo market share. CEO Bilal Ekşi says the flag carrier gained a 3.4% share of the global international passenger market last year, making it the top airline in Europe. Its cargo division, Turkish Cargo, also rose to third place worldwide with a 5.7% market share. The latest figures come just days after Turkish Airlines released its latest financial results, showing a $2.4 billion net profit in 2024. 2 weeks have passed since Israeli forces withdrew from several villages in Lebanon's south. In many areas, following the destruction of civilian infrastructure, basics like electricity have still not been restored. But despite few resources, people in southern Lebanon are excited to celebrate Ramadan. Priyanka Navani reports.
In Mais al-Jabal, a Lebanese border village that has been nearly completely destroyed in the Israel-Hezbollah war, people are still coming to terms with sites like these. Tons and tons of rubble yet to be cleared, funerals are still being held, and the grieving process for all that has been lost feels ongoing.
We are coming back again with all these damages and all that has happened. We are here. I didn't just have a house here, I had many things that I did with my own hands. It's the first time I came back. They destroyed everything, but I don't care about this. They can destroy all of this, but they can't take the land from us.
Observing Ramadan here will not be an easy feat. Multiple mosques have been destroyed, including this one. It's over 100 years old, and residents say it was attacked multiple times throughout the course of the war. There's also no electricity in Mais al-Jabal and a single functioning bakery. But the community is doing its best to come together and provide for one another. The determination to rebuild here in southern Lebanon is particularly strong given Ramadan. This supermarket was bombed during the war, but now the owner has reopened right next door, just in time for the holy month. This is the first market to be reopened in Mais al-Jabal, according to owner Musa Yahya, constituting both a physical and emotional relief for residents.
Now we are preparing for Ramadan, and in the middle of Ramadan, our houses will be restored, and we will go back. We were born here, we live here, and we will come back here.
The coming Ramadan won't look like years past. The decor and lights that usually decorate streets are absent this year. But after so much loss, what's most important, people say, is the ability to observe the month together, back in their beloved village, back in the place they were forced out of for so many months. Priyanka Navani, TRT World, Mais al-Jabal, South Lebanon.
Well, during Ramadan, a simple cup of tea carries deep significance. As families gather to break their fast, tea becomes a symbol of warmth, hospitality and togetherness. Beyond its cultural role, tea is a powerful economic driver, shaping industries, sustaining farmers and influencing global trade. Now, tea is the second most consumed beverage in the world after water. The global tea market is projected to reach almost $34 billion by 2032, growing around 6% annually. Over 2 billion people drink tea each day, supporting millions of farmers and workers worldwide. Turkey leads the world in per capita tea consumption, with each person drinking around 1,300 cups per person per year. That's 3 to 4 cups daily. The Turkish tea industry provides thousands of jobs, especially in the Black Sea region, where most of the country's tea is grown. China produces nearly 50% of the world's tea, dominating global supply. India follows, contributing around 20%. Together, these two nations shape international tea prices, supply chains and global trade. South Korea's tea market has grown 44% in 4 years, reaching over $680 million in 2023. Luxury tea experiences like tea omakase has been driving premium tea sales. Despite the country's rich tea heritage, per capita tea consumption remains relatively low at 168 grams per year. Vast megacities in science fiction movies and books may soon become science fact if companies such as Toyota have anything to do with it. The first phase of their sci-fi concept city, where the latest smart devices assist residents to build a new future, has just been completed, and the first 100 residents will move in this autumn. Pinar Nishasta reports.
From autonomous drones to flying cars, a bold vision in Japan is now one step closer to reality.
Located at the base of beautiful Mount Fuji in Japan, Woven City is more than just a place to live, work, and play. Woven City is a place where people can invent and develop all kinds of new products and ideas.
Phase 1 is now complete, and it will host its first residents later this year. Toyota officials say the systems have already been trialed to integrate drones, interactive robots that assist the elderly, and personal mobility devices like wheelchairs and race bikes.
I believe Toyota has a responsibility to invest in our collective future, to share what we've learned with others, and support new ideas that benefit the planet and its people.
Only low to zero emission and autonomous vehicles are allowed. The project will also invest in reaching for the stars, in collaboration with Japanese startup Interstellar Technologies. Toyota says it does not expect to make any profit out of the Woven project, instead focusing on building the future of mobility. Panay Nishasta, TRT World.
And if you have any stories you'd like our reporters to look into or any questions for our experts, you can send us a post on X at TRT Money Talks. Well, that is all from Money Talks for now. From me and the whole team here in Istanbul, thanks for watching. Bye for now.